Hello, hello, hello. Greetings and salutations, friends. I'm Prince Amari, gay dating coach, matchmaker, #1 best-selling author of Lasting Love at Last, the gay guide to attracting the relationship of your dreams. And in this video, we're talking about sexpectations, friends. Okay? Now, we know as people, period, as gay men especially, but as people, period, sex is really important for our relationships, right? Relatively depending on the person, your sex drive, your interest in sex, like all of that notwithstanding, we know that sex is a big deal. And especially in gay relationships, in the gay dating arena, we make sex probably an even bigger deal than it likely should be. However, that's not the point of this video directly. What is the point though is there's so many things that we don't talk about that we need to talk about that would improve the quality of both our sex lives and our relationships that we often just don't have the language to do, right? And so as a gay dating coach, I worked with over 1,000 professionals, 1,000 executives over the last however many years it's been since 2011. I've been coaching professionally since then. I started my company in 2017. So we can do the math if you want to, but I've been coaching a long time. And the thing that I'm about to share with you is what I would say the vast majority, almost all of my clients struggle with this. And so I thought it was really important to bring this up. And in the spirit of full disclosure, my allergies are allergying. So pardon my dab. So we got to talk about the difference between expectations, assumptions, and agreements, because you would be surprised how often the lack of understanding of these three things creates stress and struggle in our relationships. And so let's just jump in, right? Expectations are when you want a specific outcome and you want your partner, in this case, because we're talking about relationships, you want your partner to be either responsible for that outcome or to participate in it, right? But you've communicated that to the partner. That's an expectation. An assumption is when you want a partner to do something, but you have not communicated that to them, right? And so we get tripped up a lot in our relationships because we have assumptions that we think are expectations. We think our partner is supposed to do a specific thing, show up a specific way, say specific words, hold us the way we want to be held, touch us the way we want to be touched, whatever it is, but we haven't communicated that to them. And therefore, it's an assumption, not an expectation. An expectation is always communicated. Now, that doesn't mean your partner agreed to fulfill the expectation, because if so, that is an agreement. And so we have to know those three things: expectations, assumptions, and agreements. And if we look at our level of satisfaction in a relationship, our satisfaction is 100% dependent on our expectations and agreements. And so if you can master this one thing in terms of the way you communicate with your partners, you are going to have a much more satisfying sex life and relationship. So here's the thing. Whenever you are frustrated about something, whenever you are disappointed, whenever you feel like your needs are not being met, you have to ask yourself, did we talk about this? Is this something we already have an agreement around? Because if not, the problem is likely not that they aren't doing the thing you want them to do. The problem is you haven't talked about it. If you don't talk about it, your partner can't read your mind. And this is not depending on how long you've been knowing each other, how long you've been together. It doesn't matter. If you don't have the conversation, it's not an agreement. And therefore, you can't hold them accountable to agreements that they have not made. Okay? You can't. If you try to hold somebody accountable to an agreement that they haven't made, you look like a jerk, an asshole, and effectively, like, that's how you're operating, right? So you can't hold people accountable to agreements that they have not agreed to. And if you try to do that, you will develop a lot of resentment in the relationship because you're operating based on assumptions versus the agreements that you have. And every single relationship is different. Y'all already know that, but the differences are about the agreements. So I can't really harp on this enough, because again, like I said, I worked with over 1,000 gay singles, and most people struggle with this. So I don't believe that you can ever like beat this particular conversation dead or not, right? So that's the context for this Sexpectations conversation. Now let's talk about the sex part, right? Already, if we haven't talked about it, I can't hold you accountable. If we haven't talked about what we want, sexually, what we don't want, what we like, what we don't like, our fantasies, our fears. We also cannot expect our partner to fulfill those either, and we aren't going to be satisfied in our sex lives if we haven't talked about the thing. A lot of the issues that we have around sex stem from the fact that we tend to see position as an identity rather than just an activity. And that trips a whole lot of us up, because if you say you're a top or a bottom or a verse or side or whatever it is that you prefer to do in terms of like position wise, your definition of that is still unique to you. And some people, like, we might both say that we're tops, but we still mean totally different things. To one person, top doesn't include anything oral, doesn't include anything other than the penetrative act. And to someone else, it's a whole lot more plus tax and tip and a cherry on top, right? So you got to have the conversation of what that means. But again, your position is not your identity. And sometimes we will meet someone, maybe we like them, maybe the energy is energy in the way it needs to be, but then we learn that their sexual position preference doesn't match what we prefer, and then we're automatically turned off. And the problem is our use of language is crazy with this, because we say preference, but that's not what we mean. Because the preference is, if you prefer apples over oranges and there's no apple, you will still eat the orange. That's a preference. But if there's no apples and you won't eat the orange and it's orange available, that's not a preference, that's a deal breaker. And a lot of us are, again, operating from the perspective that this is just, a preference, and we are effectively getting people out of our lives, saying no to people who could be really good for us, because we don't know how to have the conversation and negotiate. And so all of our relationship issues come back to one core problem. The number one reason anybody is single is because they're trying to have a level 25 relationship with level 3 dating skills. And one of the primary dating skills you have to develop is the ability to define, adjust, and negotiate realistic expectations. If you cannot do that, your relationship is either going to not get off the ground or it's not going to be satisfying. Because again, your satisfaction is 100% based on your expectations. And if you don't know how to create realistic expectations, you are not going to be satisfied, friend. The odds are not going to be in your favor. Okay? So going back to this ability to set realistic expectations, we got to have the conversation, and we got to hear where other people are. Just because someone has a different preference than you, right? Again, using it in the right way, preference, meaning this is the thing I like, doesn't mean that they won't accommodate what you like. They won't be willing to experiment. They won't be willing to try it. And because we don't know how to negotiate, we take the first thing that someone says as a rule of law, and we don't ask deeper questions. We don't get at why people like the things that they like, what level of strictness people have with the things that they communicate that they like or don't like, right? We don't ask enough questions. We just kind of like find any excuse to end things before things get off the ground, because we don't know how to communicate and we don't know how to negotiate. And so there's so many other things we could talk about sexually, but I don't want this video to be long, so I'm probably going to make a series of these Sexpectations videos. But this is the first, right? Got to know that difference. Expectations, assumptions, agreements. You got to be able to define realistic expectations, and then you have to be able to listen to what other people want and negotiate what you want to happen in your relationship, because all relationships are continual negotiations. There's never going to be a time in a long-term relationship where you no longer have to negotiate differences. There's never going to be that time. If you're together for 50 years, expect 50 years of negotiation. Because even though you might like something and we might have clarified that now, we grow, we change, we evolve, we develop. Our sexual appetites shift, right? Like everything is going to change in a relationship. And the only way to keep a relationship going for the long term is to develop the skill of negotiation in a relationship. And again, if y'all missed it, my allergies are giving the most, but I didn't want to like not make a video for y'all because this is on my heart. So we here, but yeah, so that's a big thing. Now let's talk about the chemistry of it all, right? A lot of times we will assume that chemistry is the end all be all make or break of a relationship, because we don't realize that chemistry is co-created. And the number one thing that determines whether or not we are attracted to people is our level of confidence, right? even beyond looks. Looks will get your attention, but attractiveness does not correlate to relationship satisfaction or longevity. Let's put that out there again. It's about the skills. So you can be attracted to someone, cool, but attraction is not chemistry. And you've probably had that experience where you're like, oh yeah, like I definitely want to see what this is about. And then you get there and you're like, oh, this not nothing like I thought it was gonna be, right? Attraction is not chemistry. But chemistry is based on our level of presence, our level of confidence. And if both of us are confident, we can co-create chemistry. And I'm using that word intentionally because it is a co-creative thing. Okay? Over time, all relationships at around the 2-year mark, the passion is going to start to fade because there are 3 things that drive passion. The first is novelty. When something is new, it's exciting, you're more likely to feel attracted to a person because of the novelty. I don't know you yet, so it's like, okay, this is fresh, right? The second is mystery. Mystery is all the things you don't know about a person, all the ways that you're curious. And we will often say that this person is interesting or not interesting. Like, we use that language when in reality what makes a person interesting is not them, is your curiosity that makes them interesting. So in a relationship, once we start to assume we know everything about our partners and we stop asking questions, the chemistry is going to go down because we no longer have the curiosity about them. And again, it's not because they're not interesting. We all grow and change a lot. You're a completely different person in a lot of ways than you were a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, right? And your partner is also going to be. The third thing is emotional arousal. And this is when you're doing things together that get your emotions going, taking a dance class, going to a scary movie, anything like that. But doing it with your partner is going to increase the emotional activation you experience. And that's going to drive the chemistry between you two. The one thing that diminishes chemistry, right, that diminishes passion specifically, is being together over time, right? The consistency. So if you think of these as like elements, consistency is earth. If you put sand on a fire, it puts the fire out. And so the couples that keep chemistry going the longest are the ones that build habits around increasing and sustaining the level of novelty, the new things we do together, right? The level of curiosity, so the questions, the ways that we are interested and show that interest in our partners, and then the emotional arousal, so the things that we do that get our emotions going. If we develop habits around those things, and some people accidentally happen upon those habits, right? But if we intentionally do it, we will keep the passion alive in our relationship no matter how long we're together, right? So those are the 3 things. If we don't know how to set realistic expectations, though, and we don't know how to negotiate, it will prevent us from being able to develop the habits that keep chemistry alive, right? Because if I can't ask you questions and dig into what you want and why you want it and come to mutually satisfying agreements, again, if I can't negotiate, the level of curiosity I have is going to diminish, which means the level of chemistry in our relationship, the level of passion in our relationship is also going to diminish. But that all goes back to that primary understanding of the difference between expectations, assumptions, and agreements, and our ability to negotiate them. So again, I'll keep this video, I'll end this video now to keep it short, but I will for sure come back with another part on Sexpectations. If you are in DC, I'm hosting a whole workshop on Sexpectations as a part of the official Black Gay Pride, World Pride, Capital Pride sequence. So May 24th, I'll be hosting this workshop. I think that's a Saturday at the official host hotel. So check that out on the Pride calendar website, whatever they have up, I don't know. But if you want to see more about Sexpectations, find me there. Also have a number of cool links and resources if you're looking on or looking into how to improve your love life, whether you're single or in a relationship. Check out the links in the video, and including if you are looking for a dating coach and you're interested in working together, you can schedule a consultation at the link in the video description as well. But until next time, I'm sending y'all love, peace, and glitter. Take it easy and get those expectations and assumptions and agreements together, friend. Adios.